The late afternoon sun blazed like a spotlight over the cracked rural road, turning the air into something thick and shimmering. 10-year-old Syme Johnson walked slowly, the soles of his shoes sticking slightly to the softening asphalt. His backpack was old and heavy, mostly books but also something more important. A worn-out toolkit, a gift from his Uncle Leon, a mechanic who believed every kid should know how to fix an engine, boy or girl. Syme's steps faltered when he saw the car, a glossy red Shelby GT 500 Mustang, its hood gaping open like a gasping mouth. Standing beside it was a man who looked like he didn't belong anywhere near this side of the highway. Tall, white, sweating through a sleek designer suit, pacing and yelling into a cell phone like the world owed him a solution. "I don't care what you charge for the tow. I've been stuck here for 2 hours," the man barked. "I've got a meeting with the governor in less than 3 hours, for God's sake. Get someone here." Syme's aunt always said never to talk to strangers, especially ones in suits who looked like they could buy the whole town. But something about the way the man sounded, impatient, yes, but also a little helpless, made Syme pause. He shifted the backpack on his shoulder and walked up slowly, eyeing the car. "Excuse me, sir," he said cautiously. "Need some help?" The man turned and blinked at him like Syme had materialized from the heat waves. His face twisted, not with anger, but that kind of grown-up amusement that usually meant, "That's cute. That's kind of you, kid. But this is a high-performance engine. I need a real mechanic." Syme didn't flinch. "My uncle's a mechanic. He runs a garage. I've been fixing engines with him since I was 6. I can take a look." Before the man could protest, Syme had already dropped his bag, unzipped it, and leaned under the hood with the confidence of someone who knew what they were doing. "When did the problem start?" he asked, voice casual. The man sighed. "It started overheating about 40 minutes ago, then it just died." "Did it smell sweet, like syrup?" The man blinked, surprised. "Yeah. Now that you say it." "Coolant leak," Syme said, pointing at a small puddle forming beneath the car. "Your radiator's bleeding. That's why it overheated." The man stepped closer, watching the boy. There was something oddly familiar about the way he moved, precise, focused. The boy's eyes scanned the engine like they were reading a language no one else could see. "What's your name?" the man asked suddenly. "Syme. Syme Johnson." He held out a grease-stained hand, and the man shook it, more out of reflex than politeness. "Andrew Whitaker," he replied. Syme nodded. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Whitaker. I think I can patch this up so you can at least get into town." From his bag, he pulled out a small metal case, one that had once held first aid supplies but now contained clamps, tape, and other essentials. "Uncle Leon makes me carry this around. Says you never know when someone's car might betray them." Andrew Whitaker, billionaire CEO of Whitaker Enterprises, watched with growing fascination as the boy patched the hose with special heat-resistant tape and pointed out exactly how much water the car would need before it could be driven again. But, just as Syme wiped his forehead, Andrew's eyes caught a glint of green on the boy's hand. A ring. Not just any ring, but a ring set with an emerald stone, mounted in antique gold and kept tight on the boy's finger with thread wrapped around the base. Andrew's heart slammed into his chest. That ring. He had seen it before. 12 years ago. He had given it to a little girl named Maya at an orphanage called Little Angels, before everything went wrong. His voice came out rough, almost a whisper. "That ring. It's very unusual." Syme looked at it. "It was my mom's, my adoptive mom. Her name was Diana. She died last year." Andrew's mind reeled. "Do you know where she got it?" he asked. Syme shrugged. "She always said it belonged to someone special, that one day I'd understand its meaning." Andrew offered to drive Syme home, and after a pause, the boy agreed. During the ride, Andrew asked soft, careful questions. How long Syme had lived there, who he lived with now, what he remembered about his early childhood. "I've been here since I was 3, Syme said. "Before that, I think I was in an orphanage called Little Angels. My mom didn't talk about it much. Andrew nearly swerved. Are you sure? Yeah. Why? I used to know it, he said quietly. When they reached a modest house at the edge of a small rural neighborhood, Syme jumped out. Before he left, Andrew gave him a business card. If you ever need anything, he said, anything at all, call me. Syme took the card, eyes narrowing slightly as if sensing something more. Then he turned and ran inside. Andrew sat frozen. In the car, staring at the ring on the boy's hand until the door closed behind him. Then he picked up his phone. Ramirez, he said to his private investigator. I found her. Or him, I think. The kid from Little Angels. I need everything you can find on a boy named Syme Johnson and his adoptive mother, Diana. What Syme couldn't know, what he wouldn't know for days, was that this chance meeting was about to crack open secrets buried for more than a decade. Secrets that connected one of the most powerful men in Boston. A mysteriously shut-down orphanage, and a boy with an uncanny gift for fixing things. 3 sleepless nights later, Andrew sat in his penthouse surrounded by documents, old photos, and high-resolution images of the emerald ring. It was the same one, the one he had given that child all those years ago. A promise he'd made, and broken. 12 years ago, his father, Howard Whitaker, had bought the Little Angels property for pennies, citing financial irregularities. Soon after, Andrew had been promoted to CEO, but the details never sat right with him. When his investigator called again, the voice on the other end was colder than before. Diana Johnson died in a car accident. Brake failure, but it was suspicious. As for adoption records, they're gone. No trace of Syme at Little Angels. No trace of Diana adopting him legally. Back at the house, Syme was in his sanctuary, the shed behind the house. Tools hung neatly on the walls. Wires, gears, old radios, clocks. It smelled like metal and history. Leon walked in. Did you fix that old radio? Yeah. Just had to reconnect some wires. Leon smiled, ruffling his nephew's hair. You've got a gift, kid. Never seen anyone like you. Syme hesitated. I met a rich guy the other day. His car broke down. I fixed it. He recognized my ring. Leon stiffened. What guy? Andrew Whitaker. Leon froze. Renee, Syme's aunt, appeared in the doorway, eyes wide. Syme, she said slowly. Remember when we said we'd tell you the truth about your mother one day? That night, Syme sat silently as he learned everything. How Diana had been a nurse at Little Angels. How, when the orphanage was suddenly shut down, she ran away with him. How they changed their names, hid, moved often, always afraid someone would find them. She left something for you, Renee said, handing him a yellowed envelope. She said to give it to you only if someone from the Whitakers ever showed up. Syme's fingers trembled as he opened it. My dear Syme, if you're reading this, someone found you, and there are things you need to know. Meanwhile, Ramirez had more news. Sir, someone else is investigating Little Angels. A reporter, Marcus Hayes, and he's got a theory about why your father was so interested in those children. Why? They had talents, rare ones, cognitive, mechanical, even medical. Syme's gift, and it fits. The next morning, a black SUV pulled up outside Syme's school. 2 men in suits watched from inside. That him? Yeah. The one with the emerald ring. Mr. Whitaker wants to see him. Across the street, Leon sat in his truck, engine off, phone in hand. He dialed a number Diana had left for emergencies. Marcus Hayes? He said. It's about Little Angels, and a boy with a ring. I have proof. The elevator doors slid open. On the 50th floor of Whitaker Enterprises. Inside the conference room, nervous executives murmured under their breath. Howard Whitaker, the founding titan, stood at the head of the table with fury written all over his face. Where the hell is my son? He growled. This is an emergency board meeting. As if summoned by the storm, the doors swung open again. Andrew walked in, calm, collected, and behind him a woman in a dark suit. No one in the room recognized her, but the badge on her chest said plenty. Sorry I'm late, Andrew said evenly. This is Federal Prosecutor Claire Bennett. She has a few questions about something called Project Prometheus. Howard's face drained of color. Andrew walked to the large screen on the wall and connected his laptop. One click, and it lit up with folders, images, documents. A history of everything Whitaker Enterprises had tried to bury. Project Prometheus, Andrew said, was a covert program initiated by our company to identify children with unusual talents. Children like Saeem. Howard stepped forward, voice a hiss. What the hell are you doing? Something I should have done a long time ago. The room dimmed as video footage rolled across the screen. A woman, Diana Johnson, fleeing the orphanage in the dead of night. A child clutched in her arms. Then another clip. Howard speaking to a security guard. We can't lose her. The boy has mechanical cognition off the charts. Military-level potential. In the background, executives shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Andrew's voice cut through like ice. 3 staff members died in the following weeks. Accidents. One of them was Diana's brother. He'd started asking too many questions. You stole those documents, Howard snapped. This is corporate espionage. No, Andrew replied. This is evidence of crimes, unethical experiments, falsified records, bribery, abuse. The air turned electric. And then the doors opened again. Saeem stepped into the room. He looked impossibly small in that massive glass tower, but he walked with quiet resolve. Uncle Leon was right behind him. So was a man with a camera, Marcus Hayes from the Boston Globe. Andrew blinked in surprise. Saeem, you didn't have to come. I did, Saeem said, voice steady. Diana always told me I'd have to face the men who made us run. Howard's expression twisted from shock to something colder. So you're Project 17, he said slowly. Didn't expect you to be so ordinary. Saeem stepped forward. And you're the man who killed my mom. Howard chuckled, low and bitter. Her brakes failed. That's unfortunate. But proving any of this? Impossible. I'm not just a man, I am the system. Saeem didn't blink. He opened his backpack and pulled out the emerald ring. Then, using trembling fingers, he twisted the gem. A click. The ring opened. Inside was a tiny, gleaming data chip. She hid it here, Saeem said. My mother. It contains backups of everything. The experiments, the reports, even your meetings with military contractors. Every secret you thought you'd buried. Howard stood frozen. This broadcast is live, Marcus Hayes added. We've been streaming since the moment Saeem walked. Dimny social platforms, our newsroom, tens of thousands are watching. Andrew turned to his father, quiet and unrelenting. It's over. Claire Bennett stepped forward. Mr. Howard Whitaker, you are under arrest for conspiracy, abuse, fraud, and multiple federal violations. As agents moved in, Howard still refused to move, still clinging to some belief that it was a bluff. I built this company, he whispered. You can't destroy me. No, Andrew said. You destroyed yourself. Saeem stepped up beside him, eyes locked on the man who had tried to control his life before he could speak his first word. My mom said broken people have to fix themselves. I hope you get the chance. In prison. Howard was led away. The man, who once ruled the city, now cuffed, silent and trembling. His empire crumbled before the world's eyes. In the weeks that followed, Whitaker Enterprises fell like a house of cards. Stock prices plunged. News headlines screamed betrayal and abuse. Investigations launched in every direction. Victims came forward. Old files surfaced. And Saeem Johnson, the boy who had stopped to help a stranger on the road? He became a quiet revolution. A month later, the site where Little Angels once stood was something else entirely. The Johnson Center for Young Inventors. A sleek, sprawling facility, labs, workshops, classrooms. A place where young minds, often overlooked, could thrive. Andrew donated every cent of his fortune to help build it. His suits replaced by jeans and button-down shirts. No boardrooms, no shareholders. Just work that mattered. Saeem, now 15, walked through the halls like an engineer and a leader. At 15, he was already mentoring students older than him, fixing systems others couldn't understand, publishing patents, The ring on his hand, still worn every day, now symbolized truth, not secrets. Leon ran the center's engineering department. Renee managed logistics. Andrew oversaw funding through a nonprofit called the Prometheus Initiative. No exploitation, no contracts, just scholarships, mentorship, and freedom. They found 23 kids with unique talents that first year, more each quarter, all from communities that had been forgotten. But not anymore. Every wall in the center told a story. One hallway displayed the history, black and white photographs of the orphanage, newspaper clippings about the Whitaker Empire's collapse, and one headline in bold, "The Ring That Brought Down an Empire." In a federal prison miles away, Howard Whitaker stared out a barred window. He never joined a rehab program, never apologized, still believed he'd be released, still believed he could rebuild, but the world had moved on. That evening, the Johnson Center held its first official graduation. 12 teens walked the stage, diplomas in hand. Some headed to MIT, some to companies like Tesla and NASA. All of them had started in forgotten neighborhoods, but now they were changing the world. Saim didn't graduate yet, but they asked him to give the keynote speech. He stepped on stage, the emerald ring glinting beneath the lights. "When I was 10, I stopped to help someone with a broken car," he said. "That's all. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know it would lead to all this." He paused, let the silence settle. "But that one act showed me something. Broken things can be fixed. Broken systems, they need to be redesigned." In the back, Andrew wiped a tear. "I'm not special because I fix things. I'm just someone who saw something wrong and didn't look away." The crowd stood, applauding, some crying. The next morning, a letter arrived addressed to Saim from Victoria Whitaker, Howard's daughter. She'd changed her name, became a federal prosecutor, cut all ties to her father. "We found 5 more orphanages, like Little Angels, same programs. Your story helped uncover them. 37 more children have been identified and protected. Some have talents like yours. When you're ready, they'd love to meet you." Saim read the letter aloud to Andrew, Leon, and Renee. None of them said a word for a while. Then Andrew whispered, "My father always said he was building a legacy." Saim glanced out the window, watching kids play in the center's gardens. Free, laughing, safe. "He did," Saim replied softly. Just not the one he imagined. The sun dipped low over the Johnson Center. At the entrance, a new sign had been installed that morning. "Every talent deserves to flourish. Every child deserves freedom." A promise carved into steel, one the world would never forget. 5 years had passed. The world had moved on, but the name Saim Johnson had never faded from memory. Not in Boston, not in tech circles, not in communities where kids who looked like Saim now dared to believe they could change the world too. On a bright spring morning, Saim, now 15, walked through the corridors of the Johnson Center for Young Inventors. Taller now, his voice deeper, his presence unmistakable. The same ring still sat on his finger, the emerald a little scratched, but shining as bright as ever. "The sensors in the East Wing are glitching again," he said, walking fast, flanked by engineers twice his age. "Check the heat distribution. It's probably the airflow regulation software. If not, reroute the whole feedback loop." He didn't even slow down as he spoke. The words flowed like instinct. At the back of the campus, Andrew Whitaker stood in the sun with a group of visitors and investors. He looked different now, his tailored suits replaced by rolled-up sleeves and worn boots. He laughed easily, no longer a man haunted by legacy, but one building something new. "Prometheus Initiative has 46 scholarship students this year," he told the visitors. "All of them come from underserved communities. No strings, no exploitation. Just mentorship, tech access, and safety. Some of them, they're brilliant beyond anything you can imagine." Nearby, Leon wiped his hands on a cloth after tuning a solar prototype. "Saim's got 3 patents already," he told a visiting journalist. "One of them's being used by an electric vehicle startup in Denmark. MIT, Stanford, and Harvard. Keep calling," he chuckled. "But he says he's not in a rush, says there's too much work to do right here." Inside the center, a wall-sized digital timeline told the story. A small orphanage called Little Angels, a mysterious emerald ring, a corporate empire built on exploitation, and a 10-year-old boy who unknowingly held the key to taking it all down. One headline stood larger than the rest. Child inventor exposes empire of secrets. Back in a medium-security federal prison, Howard Whitaker still sat in his cell. Crikey, now, thinner, alone. A guard passed by and shook his head. He still won't talk, still won't admit a thing. Howard barely looked up, still clinging to the past, still believing the world had wronged him. His fall from power was the kind no one saw coming, and the kind no one would ever forget. That evening, the Johnson Center held its second graduation ceremony. 12 more teens, once forgotten, now trailblazing, stood in their caps and gowns ready to take on the world. Syme, still technically too young to graduate, was asked again to give the final speech. He walked up to the podium, emerald ring. Catching the warm stage lights, the auditorium was packed, parents, scientists, lawmakers. And in the back, Andrew stood silently, eyes misted with pride. "When I was 10, Syme began, I fixed a stranger's car. That's all? A Mustang on the side of a hot road." He smiled softly. "I didn't know that act would change everything. I didn't know who he was. I didn't even know who I was." Silence settled over the room. But that one moment, just doing something small, something kind, shook an empire and built something better. He paused, looked out at the faces. "I've learned that real power isn't in money or buildings or secret projects. It's in being brave enough to act, to question things, to help someone even when you don't have to." He held up the ring. "This ring used to be a secret. Now it's a symbol of truth, of healing, of transformation." Applause began slowly, then rose like thunder. That night, after the lights dimmed and the speeches ended, Syme sat on the rooftop garden with Andrew, Leon, and Renee. The stars overhead blinked silently, as if eavesdropping. "I got a letter. Today," Syme said, pulling it from his pocket, "from Victoria Whitaker." She had dropped her father's name and joined the Department of Justice. She'd spent the last few years working on child protection programs, using everything Syme had exposed as a case study. "Thanks to your story," the letter read, "we shut down 5 more programs like the one at Little Angels. We've rescued 37 children. Some of them have gifts like yours. When you're ready, they want to meet you." Syme read it aloud. No one spoke for a long time. Then Andrew looked at him. "My father thought he was building a legacy," he said, almost a whisper. Syme folded the letter and slid it back into his pocket. "He did," he said, "but not the one he imagined." The Johnson Center continued to grow. By the end of the year, there were nearly 100 students. New dorms were added, labs doubled in size, programs expanded to other cities. And Syme? He stayed, because some places aren't just buildings, they're missions. Their home. A new plaque was placed at the front gate. Every child matters. Every voice counts. Every gift deserves a future. And on the ring, etched faintly inside the band, were 6 words Diana had written on the original blueprint. Fix the broken. Build the better. As the sun set, casting golden light across the rooftops of the center, Syme stood looking out over the garden. Below, kids tinkered with drones. 3D printers whirred. A girl with silver braids programmed a robotic hand. A boy with autism calibrated weather sensors faster than his teacher could blink. Syme smiled. The empire that once tried to use children had been replaced by one run for them. Not a single contract, not a single secret, just potential finally unchained. And as for that boy who stopped on the side of the road 5 years ago, he didn't just fix a car, he fixed the future.